Hello everyone, welcome back to another Scoobtober Retrospective. I'm JayBee and with me of course is Milly.
Hi.
We have Dan.
Hi.
And we have Sophie.
Hey.
And today we're going to be reviewing Scooby Doo and the Goblin King. So if you're a fan of this movie, make sure to stick to the end. But also for the interview series, there's going to be another interview announcement at the end of this, as with all the other ones that we've done so far. So really looking forward to get into this one. So, as I've kind of explained off camera, I did brain fart a couple of times rewatching this, so maybe I'm not as clued into the other ones as I have been, but I remember the intro and it's one of my favorite title cards because it does very much take you into like a roller coaster, right?
It does, but also it's one of the, I don't know, quite often we get like a cold opening beforehand and then the titles. This was just straight into it.
I like it a lot. And it makes it seem a bit more like an event because I think with there's so many What's New Scooby Doo ones in that era that sometimes it can seem a bit samey, or it's just like an episode but extended. It's like What's New Scooby Doo Plus. And I think really that remains true throughout all of them. But if they can make them seem a bit different like this one does, and then that instantly sets me up for more of a cinematic experience than just hey, this is a big watching Scooby Doo episode, so I like that.
Now, I must agree with you, and I think we're going to get into this in more depth, that this certainly seems different to a lot of other Scooby movies. So if you're going to identify something as a special, I'd say this one certainly has perhaps the most distinction. So this one is, I think it's fair to say, in pretty much the What's New style, although I don't like what they've done with Daphne's dress. Feel like Sophie, you're probably the best one to comment on that.
Yeah, I hate it. I mean, it's what I imagine her dress would probably be if she didn't have the green scarf on. That's what the vibe I get from it. But I still like to think she's got like just a round crew neck. But I'm not a big fan of the V. It works in What's New, but not in this one.
I didn't notice.
Normally in What's New, she's got a lilac line that goes all the way down.
Oh yeah.
And they didn't do that.
So it's just like that same blot. It's just a blot.
It's literally just like
and
a
like
triangle
the two
cut.
stripes close together on the skirt. Oh no! The worst part is the shoes. The shoes are horrific.
Yeah, they seem strange. They're not the What's New ones. They're like the What's New ones with bits cut out or something.
And they only do it for that movie and Samurai Sword, so I don't know what's going on there.
See,
but that could be a whole video in itself.
I thought that if anyone was going to notice a Daphne thing, it'd be me. But I was just, oh yeah, there's a movie. Although the cat outfit, that they redeemed themselves with that. They redeemed themselves.
The opening sequence is kind of like a carnival setting. It's Halloween, and Shaggy and Scooby aren't scared of all the monsters because they know that this time it's just people in masks. Which I think, based on how this movie pans out, it's a nice way to set things up a little bit. But what's your initial thoughts on like just that opening scene? So they've gone to the carnival, the scene there's going to be a magic show. I think we instantly get a dislike into, and I'm probably going to say his name wrong, Cardellini, because he doesn't want Shaggy and Scooby in the show, so he tells them they can't come in. What's your thoughts just on the setting, that they've used the What's New style, all that kind of stuff? JayBee, we're starting with you.
Oh, well, I love it, I think the What's New style is cool. It's not like my favorite. There's times where I'm watching something like Pirates Ahoy and I'm wishing, oh, this would have been great to see this in the Mook animation style. And even now when we've got something potentially more on the scary side, I'm kind of thinking, oh, I wish we could see what some of these monsters look like in maybe the Guess Who style or the Mystery Incorporated style. So I think it's a little bit of a style that if I hadn't grown up on it, I think I would have thought that it was a bit boring. But because I've got so much nostalgia for it, I just accept it. It almost seems like, I can go off and do this Scooby, that Scooby. It sounds like I'm having an affair. But going back to What's New style is like going home to like that type of thing. So I love it a lot.
Okay.
So I didn't mind it.
No, I have to agree with you. And Dan, what was your thoughts on that kind of initial carnival setting, seeing the What's New style again? I say again, at the time it was probably like the style, but for us it's kind of like JayBee said, I guess, going home a little bit.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I think it really sets the scene. It's very Halloweeny, it's very Scooby. I did, in going back to Daphne's dress, I remember the first time I ever watched it, I thought it was an animation error, but then obviously it just
Yes.
continued. It continued throughout the whole film. I was like, oh wait, no, they've made that choice. I liked that Scooby and Shaggy enjoy Halloween, because I know they did a What's New episode, the Scooby Doo Halloween, where they'd established that they do like Halloween. So that was a nice little callback. Yeah, I liked it. I do agree. I love the animation growing up, but looking at what they did since then, going back to What's New, it does look a bit flat, but yeah, it's very nostalgic at the same time. So when I rewatched it today, I liked it. It was like going home.
See, I like how all of us except JayBee noticed the Daphne thing.
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
he's the Daphne simp. So I don't get
Simp.
how he's the one that didn't
Nah, not
notice.
simp. I'm a fanatic. I'm a Daphnatic fan. I'm a Daphnatic.
You're creepy. Sophie, what do you think on that kind of carnival setting? They're excited for Halloween, talking about how they're not scared because they know it's people in masks and that sort of stuff.
I feel like we've all said that like the What's New movie is such a nostalgia kick, and like pretty much all of every one of the movies. But I feel like the carnival and the music, they've really like, I think you want about the intro as well. They really set it up for like a real special Halloween treat, which I think just works on like another level, which is really good.
I really like how it opens, I must admit. And then that you see the magic show, they go to
with
treating.
crud skis and
Yeah.
with the amazing crud skills on
And then I think we get to the bit that might divide people. And so far, we've all agreed on everything reviewing these. I'm kind of interested to see if at some point it separates. So we see a fairy flying around. Kredinsky, or whatever it's called, has a magic book. And it's kind of like, okay, this is gonna be real magic. This, like, there's no way this fairy is about to be unmasked and this magic book's going to be explained away. So I think that was like probably a realization that shocked a lot of people maybe when that happened. I've never been opposed to it being like, oh, the monsters are real, I love Zombie Island, but I will admit when I saw the fairy I was concerned. It was like, oh gosh, this is like completely different. Dan, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was. I remember the first time I watched it, it was very 80s Scooby. It reminded me of like something Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo might encounter, but it works for the story they want to tell. But yeah, the first time I saw it was a fairy. I was like, oh, okay, that's the direction we're going in. But yeah, I think ultimately once you see the film as a whole, it works. But yeah, seeing the fairy, was it Fairy Princess Willow at first? Especially the name Fairy Princess Willow, I was like, oh, this is a bit weird. But yeah, I think it works. In the long run, it was fine.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think when you see the movie as a whole, it makes a lot more sense. It was just when it initially flew into the room, like, what is this Tinkerbell looking thing? Like, what's going on? Sophie, what did you think when you kind of, I don't know, perhaps got that realization, like, okay, this time they're all going to be real?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you guys. Another thing is with the What's New movies, they've all got like a story that's like as old as time, like the Loch Ness Monster, like mummies, pirates, whatever. But this one, it was such a unique story, so it was all kind of like new and random, and you didn't really know what you were going to get with it. So it's quite interesting, but I mean, I wasn't convinced at the time.
JayBee, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, one thing is, I do want to know why Shaggy and Scooby were treating the magician poorly.
He wouldn't let Scooby in the show.
But yeah, I do want to know why they were treating the magician poorly. But fairies. I mean, look, here's the thing, right? When I was a wee lad, I feel like I was somewhat pressured into being a bit of a manly man, and so I was never encouraged or directed into consuming media such as you've got your Tinkerbells or your Barbie fairy princesses, although I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's just not the thing that I was directed towards, unfortunately, actually, because I do think I was robbed from a lot of iconic things. But I think this is an interesting one because I think it kind of treads the line between, we get set up with it being a Halloween special, and I think Joe Sichter even said as much, that on the witching hour, things are different, things aren't always the plan. So even if you were looking at this with purist eyes, I'm not sure if it really teeters the line between non-supernatural and supernatural to the point where you can excuse it, but at the same time, it's Halloween, right? Like, there's a fairy. I just kind of roll with the punches in that way. And the fact that they got Hayden Panettiere to be the fairy is crazy. Like, this is a star-studded cast in this one. I think it's crazy what they managed to pull off. So, yeah, I'm not really a purist, so I didn't mind that it was a fairy, but I'm not really like a number one fairy fan. It's just, hey, it's Hayden Panettiere, that's cool. A bit like when they got Alfred Molina and Chill Out. It was just kind of a nice little cameo, I think.
Okay, it's fair to say. And to be fair, I will admit, like you said, things been different and things been real. I know I'm skipping ahead here, but one of my favorite parts of this movie is when Velma faints because she just can't deal with stuff being real, and it's kind of like,
That sounds very cruel.
no, because for me it's kind of like, why didn't she just do that at on like the Curse of the 13th Ghost and wake up at the end? Like,
Oh,
I've been more than happy with that. But another thing, something else that I do really like about this movie is admittedly the music. So they go to the magic shop, and that's where we hear the first song, which I believe is Halloween Night. Then we get one that's like Bump in the Night, and then we get is it Goblin Boogie Boogie that I was singing for about 15 minutes after this movie finished. That's something that I did really like. I think that's something that's almost missing from modern day Scooby now, is just the music. What's New Era got it absolutely perfect with it, and it's kind of just nice to go back to that. Sophie, did you enjoy the music for it, and did you have a favorite song? I guess is a good question.
I think the soundtrack in this movie is great. I know I keep saying about it in these reviews, it's the balance, and I feel like a lot of the music's quite wacky and crazy, but it kind of fits with the theme of this movie. It's like really out there. Another point you mentioned, yeah, there's like literally no soundtracks nowadays in like the recent Scoob movies, and like, I always think back to The Sword and the Scoob. I know it's a bit off track, but like the ending song, like nobody can ever remember that song. So when you say Goblin King, I'll be like starting with the soundtrack, like that's the first thing. And no, I definitely really enjoy it in this movie.
Yeah, it's so good, and I think it would just be so good for Scooby to have music back to it. Do you have a favorite song from the movie?
No, not really. I think not. They're bangers. All of them are.
JayBee, I'm going to put you on the spot. I want a favorite song from you.
Oh, I'm a bit of a star simp, I must admit. Just hearing Wallace Shawn sing that first song, just the fact that it was Wallace Shawn, I think that kind of gave it the edge. I think it's the least atmospheric of like the three that they do, but it's just like my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my God, they've got Wallace Shawn to sing on a DTV. Like it was awesome. So I think that one, that's my favorite.
What about you, Dan? Did you enjoy the music? Do you have a favorite song?
Yeah, I definitely think the Goblin Oogie Boogie song was good. I like the whole scene with that, where there's a lot of the monsters from the actual show, like the Giggling Green Ghost is there, the Roller Ghost there. So I thought that was good. The songs in general, I thought were good. They were okay. But I must admit, when I was rewatching it, I thought, God, I would have cut a lot of these if it meant we got more Fred, Daphne, and Velma.
Yeah, that's the key thing
Yeah.
with this movie, is we are missing a lot of Fred, Daphne, and Velma. I could see where Fred and Daphne maybe could play a part, but I do kind of see why they had to minimize Velma, because if you're making a movie where it's all real, it's like, what was she gonna do? What was she gonna offer? I feel like it would have been like the Curse of the 13th Ghost all over again, in that she'd have just been trying to justify why it wasn't real, or like with the Return to Zombie Island, I feel like it had been very kind of like that kind of Velma that we saw. But I think you've made a valid point. And JayBee, what's your thoughts on having a bit more Fred, Daphne, and Velma in this?
See, it's interesting because I feel like there's not necessarily a lack of them per se, but simply they've got the least important of the two storylines. And I think that happens a lot with these What's New Scooby-Doo era movies, where Shaggy and Scooby will be sent off to solve the main bulk of the mystery, or they'll have the most action-packed sequences, while the rest of Mystery Inc. are just kind of there doing admin work. Like in, say, the samurai sword, despite it being set up to be Daphne's movie, she's joined the competition. Like, she's the one that's been doing martial arts. Somehow we managed to find it where Shaggy and Scooby are still the ones at the end facing against the Black Samurai. And it's kind of like this, like, despite you having Velma, who, for all she's a bit skeptical, she could be solving mysteries and Daphne could be fighting off these monsters a bit more. It ultimately is just Shaggy and Scooby's story, and they've got an excuse, oh, well, we can't get rid of them. So here's Fred doing something and Daphne doing something. So I think if they gave them a more important storyline to do, like maybe if they got the cards from the wizard and they had to do something a bit more relevant with them, or they could have all just gone into that other world, really. Like, I don't think that there was a great need to give them a threat of, oh, Velma's going to be a werewolf or something. So I just think it's about importance of story more than actual screen time. And we should have had more Cat Daphne as well, because that was iconic. But other than that, yeah, I'm always up for more of the whole gang. Like, I think what we had in Trick or Treat and even in 2002, it's just, yeah, I think it's just standard sidelining of the rest of them that was common in that era.
Yeah, I think like you say, it's kind of it's typical of that era that they were almost sidelined. I think we've seen so many iterations of Scooby where they have been, and I think really it's like Mystery Incorporated, Be Cool, where we like finally saw those three get their say on things and have a bit more character to them that wasn't just Velma's clever, Daphne's beautiful, and Fred can make a plan. Like, it wasn't until then that we really saw a lot of depth. And they're kind of used as the plot of the movie, I think, as well, like you were saying. So the reason Shaggy and Scooby do what they do is they're on this side quest to stop them turning into monsters. Sophie, what did you think to that? Like the kind of sidelining of the rest of the gang, but them being like the motive for Shaggy and Scooby to do what they were doing? Because normally they'd have been screaming and like running to hide.
If you'd asked me this question back in 2018, I always say like Goblin King was like my least favorite like Scooby movie, like it was way down there. But since 2018 and watching it every Halloween, because I still watch it every Halloween, because I mean you've got to. My respect's grown a lot for it. Let's just say that. Obviously I'm biased because I love Daphne. And there's not a lot of her in it. But for some reason, I mean, like you saying with if you look back at Chill Out Scooby Doo, it takes like near the end of the movie until the gang meet back together again. And I don't know why they keep separating the two. Like, I like the gang being the gang. I don't want like Shaggy and Scooby and then the other three together. I like them being together. But I feel like this is such a wacky, not normal Scooby movie. And I keep saying this about, Trick or Treat. But I think something about being it a special or Halloween, you kind of like just give it leeway a bit and you kind of just accept it for what it is. But that's the take that I've taken on it anyway. And I'm going to stick with it for now.
I can see what you're saying of like when it was first released that maybe it was quite a lot when you perhaps saw it for the first time, because obviously from there you get all the magic cards, then you get the train that zooms through the sky, then drops to the floor. We then get the werewolf graveyard where like Shaggy can turn into a werewolf because Scooby was hiding in his top. There's certainly a lot of stuff, even to the point of where they then go into the werewolf's house and there's that bump in the night song with all the monsters dancing together. It seems like a lot, and it's almost like it could be a dream in a way. Like it doesn't exactly feel completely real and like this is a Scooby that's part of the Scooby franchise when you're watching it. It does feel like there's perhaps a disconnect, which is perhaps the fact that it's a special. What about you, Dan? How did you feel about all those kind of almost like just all that, I don't know what word I want to use for it, but the transition throughout all those events of there's magic cards, there's a magic train, there's then a basement full of like different monsters dancing together?
Yeah, I remember the first time I ever watched it, I must admit it took me by surprise. Like everything, it just seemed to go by so quick. Like it was like you say, the train and the werewolf graveyard and all of this. I remember at the time it was like, what is going on here? It felt a bit like it's like a fever dream. I was like, especially the bit where we wake up and there's all these fairies, and I was like, what? But I suppose I like Sophie, I do watch it every Halloween, so it does, like when I rewatched it today, it was a lot easier to take in. And I suppose it makes it interesting. Like it's never boring. Like it is constantly moving. There's a different set piece. You've got the witches, you've got those little goblins in the armor and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely one of those. The first time you watch it, it's very overwhelming, but it's fun, and it's a special. It's a Halloween special, so it's sort of, I can give it leeway because of that.
Yeah, no, it definitely keeps moving. Like I said, after that, they make friends with a pumpkin. There's a headless horseman. There's more magic cards. There's witches on brooms. There's a city of fairies. It's like just constantly. You can't accuse this movie of being boring, or just, oh yeah, it's just like the last one, or all the DTVs are becoming the same. Like I don't think there's ever been one like it. I'd be shocked if there was again, but it certainly kept things interesting. Sophie, how did you feel about all that sequence? Because I think there's quite a definitive middle sequence from them leaving the magic shop to just a series of events that keeps happening as they try and find their way to the Goblin King.
Yeah, it's like one after the other, like there's no rest. It's like you say, it's definitely entertaining. Like you know, you don't like rest. It keeps going. Especially from like the train scene when like Scooby and Shaggy turn into like all these different creatures, and then from there it's like go, and it's like doesn't stop. I do like all the different settings and all the different scenes and who they meet. Yes, it's a lot, but you know, I think they fit really well with the Halloween theme. And I think that's what they achieved by it, and I think it did work.
Okay, and JayBee, do you agree?
I mean, yeah, I think specials are always gonna have that a little bit more leeway, and it's like for all I don't really keep up the series anymore. Like The Simpsons, like unless it's every other Simpsons, you know what you're gonna get. It's gonna be same universe, they're just different stories. But then when you get to the Tree Houses of Horror, you can have Homer get abducted by aliens, he turns green, then Mr. Burns is like inside out. Like there's all types of crazy stuff that can happen because it's a Halloween special. So I think that's why a lot of the wackiness works. And even if it wasn't, I'm not the type of person that would be against it. But yeah, I think the fact that it is the Halloween special, I think it makes it a lot more excusable when you see all these fairies flying around.
See, I come back to this a lot, but I can't help it. If you think about this is how they did a Halloween special, and then you think about how they did a 53 years of Scooby reunion special, I'll take movies like this any day of the week over what happened with that. Like they could make it this but 10 times crazier, and I'd take this over what they did there. So I'm gonna say, as far as a Warner Brothers Scooby special goes, this is actually quite good.
Yeah, that was crap, wasn't it, that they did that. They didn't assemble anyone. I think we assembled more people even in half of season one than they did. You know what I mean? I could have done it with one hand tied behind my back. Whoever organized that episode needs a smack bottom in my book.
Okay, so moving on. Something that I did find funny, because I've got a very simple sense of humor, is when they're dressed as Daphne and Velma. I don't know why, but just seeing them do impressions of them two just made me laugh. I don't know if any of you want to throw opinions out there, or if I just found it funnier than it was, but
Yeah, there's one issue I have with that, and it's that Daphne's scarf isn't green, and I don't know how you can get that wrong. Like the Scooby Gang's outfits are so iconic. I don't know how you can do the color for a Scooby Doo movie and not get Daphne's scarf green. They did it purple and it looks awful.
I like to think, was it the Pirates Ahoy first and then Goblin King? I can't remember. But like in the scene where in Pirates Ahoy, when they're dressed as Daphne and Velma, I like to think like they kind of made up from scratch and like whatever scraps of material they had. But yeah, it does annoy me a little bit that it's not green. But like I say, like in my Scoobtober, that prompt comes up, Goblin King every year, but I have to draw them too as Daphne and Velma. Like I don't draw anything else. I find it so funny.
No, it is good. It's just nice to see a little bit of personality there, because I even like it in Is It Trick or Treat, where Shaggy and Scooby dress up as each other. I like that as well. I don't know why. I'm just amused by really simple things.
See, it's a bit on the suggestive side, really, but then it reminds me of classic Looney Tunes where you'd have Bugs dressing up as a woman and like messing around with Elmer Fudd to like distract him. So for all it does kind of go, maybe they're doing a bit too much. Maybe they're having a bit too much fun dressed as their friends. At the same time, when I look back at it and I'm like, okay, so this is like a staple of that time. This is the type of shenanigans that would have happened, in cartoons made back then. So Yeah, I think it's just a nice timepiece, and it is funny really when they're just essentially making fun of their friends in a way. But yeah, I like it. I like it.
It's good. And of course, this is what leads into the Goblin Boogie Boogie as well, which I absolutely
Oh,
love.
and
That song.
Tim
It's brilliant.
Curry as the Goblin King. Like, I don't know what budget they had for this voice cast over all the others, but they really spent it. Like, they did bits.
Yeah.
Tim Curry. That's like the second best type of curry. That's crazy. And that's coming from an Indian. So, like, literally, I love it. I love it.
No, it was good. I really like the Goblin. The Goblin then catches Shaggy and Scooby, and then we see things kind of transition back a bit to the real world where they make the mystery machine the monstrous machine. And I feel like, for all this is nice, don't have any issues with it, but this is completely just a case of they got to the end of making this movie. I'm like, oh no, we only have a minute and a half with the other three in it. Let's give them a scene. Nothing wrong with the scene that they got, but it was very much just let's slot this in there to give them something. Did any of you have any thoughts on that? Did you kind of feel the same, that for all it was a good scene or a bad scene if you didn't like it, that it was perhaps just slotted in there?
My favourite part, I think, when the mystery machine is going bad, they've got like a little store with like loads of scrappy plushies. And every time that comes on, I'm like, yay! That's like my favourite part. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
I love that. I'd like a good Scruffy plush.
I think Scrappy got featured in this movie as much as those three, and I don't think we've been able to say that for anything other than this movie for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you that they did just need a scene with them all together, but at the same time, I don't think it was a case of, oh, we've not showcased them enough, we need to showcase them now. It was just like a natural progression. I'd almost say it's more to do with we need, X amount of minutes for runtime to make this a DTV. Now we're back in the real world. It makes more sense to just fill it with the characters that we're now being reintroduced to, as opposed to, oh, we need to showcase them more, which maybe it would have been better if they were doing a more deliberate showcase on them. But I just think it was, okay, we need that big action set piece.
Yeah, we need a
we're in
conclusion.
the third act and we need X amount of time left.
Yeah.
To go on to it.
And it's kind of a set piece to just bring everyone back together a little bit as well. So Shaggy and Scooby like fly in to save the day. Scooby gets that goblin staff thing back and changes the magician back to who he was before. And then we find out that the fairy was the Goblin King's daughter and he wanted to save her because she was kidnapped at the start. I believe is that how it ends, JayBee?
Yeah. It just leaves me with a lot of questions that I'm sure aren't age appropriate for the review, but
it leaves me with more questions than answers. It leaves me feeling extremely baffled. Like, when a car drives past you really quickly and you feel like you've almost hit by it and you just need to take a second to stand still. I feel like that. I feel like I've just had something go past me really quickly and I need a second to process it. It certainly is a different movie, but the question is did we enjoy it or not? So smash or pass, JayBee?
See, I feel bad because you can't script the interviews, you can't script the reviews because they're all dependent. And so I want to say we started off with the weakest in week one and then we're gradually getting better. But I will say, in terms of just this movie in general, I think it's my least favorite out of all the ones we've covered so far. Like, I think I'd go 2002, Trick or Treat, and then this so far. But that isn't to say that I didn't like it. I think this is really, really good. And actually, I think it's a good deal better than a lot of the other DTVs that we didn't include in this. So it is a definite smash, but, I don't think I've enjoyed it as much as the other ones. So what about you, Milly?
I'd say I think it's pretty good. It ticks a lot of the boxes that I like about Scooby. I love the What's New style. I really like when Scooby incorporates music. I like when they're not scared to do something different. I realise that and I respect that this is a movie that might perhaps cause a few people to have differing opinions. It's not just your core Scooby where there's an unmasking and everything's fine at the end. You still feel quite unsettled at the end because it is a bit of a roller coaster. But I don't really have something that I didn't like about the movie. I can just say that the bits I was unsure of, it was just because it was different, not because I didn't like it. So I'd definitely say this movie was a smash. And like I said, I think that there was something that they did here that I'd like to have seen them done when, like, seen them do when they revisited Zombie Island and Curse of the 13th Ghost and stuff, which was just
Velma KO
yeah,
the
which
floor
was
in the
just
background of every
make her
shot.
faint, make her that overwhelmed. She's not going to say anything because at least it didn't ruin it. If she's got nothing constructive to say, take a hint from when they did it this time and just don't have her say anything. But yeah, for me, it's a smash. Dan, what about you? What was your thoughts on this movie?
Yeah, I do obviously have a few issues with it, but overall, like you say, it's something different. And with it being a Halloween special, I can give most of my issues a pass. So yeah, it's definitely something like I said, I do watch every Halloween. It's not my favorite Scooby Halloween at all, but it is good. I do enjoy it, and yeah, definitely gets a smash from me.
Okay, and Sophie, what about you? Because I know when you first saw it, like you said, your opinion might have changed, but what's your opinion now?
I totally agree with all you guys. I think as a Scooby Doo Halloween goes, I think the episodes, any Halloween episode ranks higher, and like, you know, Trick or Treat Scooby Doo. But out of all the movies, you got 3 movies. You got Trick or Treat, Goblin King, and Happy Halloween. Now I cannot put Goblin King with Happy Halloween. That would be a crime against all crimes. So what we have, and for what it is, and for it to be a fun, wacky Halloween movie that I do watch religiously every single year, I will smash this one.
Oh no.
Oh no, I was
wasn't
nearly there. I'm teetering.
I wasn't expecting that we would all smash this movie. I did think that because it is so different, one of us could have had a potential issue with it. But
Well, if you had asked me back in 2018, it might have been different, but now it's not.
well, as you were mentioning as well, there is another Scooby Halloween, which is Happy Halloween, and that will be the one for next week.
Yeah, which is it is a dicey way to end things, I will admit. But I think when people know who the guest is, all that anxiety will go away. But we still have to review the movie, which is bad. But yeah, I do like this one a lot. It's just with 2002 especially, that's the type of movie that if they re-release that in the cinemas tomorrow, I would go wearing an adult diaper because I wouldn't want to like go to the toilet and miss any of it. Like, and I think maybe the same with Trick or Treat, although maybe to a lesser extent. But with this one, I don't need no diaper. I can go to the toilet in the middle of it. It's just, you know, it is what it is. I don't know why I'm bringing up diapers. It's cold. So yeah, as you mentioned, there is a Happy Halloween interview next week. But this week, for all this is my least favorite one that we've covered so far, definitely isn't the least favorite announcement because we are going to be interviewing Kevin Altieri. So we're having back-to-back Kevins. Last week it was Kevin Kocheva. This week it's Kevin Altieri, who was one of the unit directors of the Goblin King. So it was incredible to talk to him. If you remember the intro, he's actually one of the people that they animated coming out of the graves in a very spooky fashion. So that's an amazing one. It's personally maybe my favorite of the interviews that we've done for this month. And that includes last week, which had never before seen footage, never before seen concept art, and I think this one edged even that one for me. So I'm going to leave that linked in the description down below as well, and it's also going to be part of the end card. But maybe we're even saving the best interview for the last week, and that will include the whole core 4, which is very exciting. Actually, it's nice that we brought that full circle. But I think that's the first one we recorded, so yeah, it's funny how this stuff works. So let's break it down. We can find all of our social links in the description down below. Dan, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, people can find me on Twitter and Instagram at danfaz94.
And Sophie?
Yep, you can find me on Instagram at Scooby Doo for life.
So I'll leave those links in the description down below. If you do want to see more, then please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.